welcome back to Celebrity Rap Sheet. New season, new theme. Even though I swore I wasn't going to do themes, I said I'd just do random people, but fuck it, here we are.
Themes are easier.
This time we're stepping into the world of comedians, people whose job it is to make you laugh, which historically has gone very well for their mental health.
Yep, nothing says stability like needing strangers to validate your personality every night.
Exactly, and we'd know all about that.
Yep.
Low pressure environment, very supportive industry. That's what they got into. This episode is about Freddie Prinze Sr., stand-up comic, television star, and one of the fastest rises in entertainment history. And when I say fast, I don't mean a couple of years. I mean months. From open mic comedian to starring in a hit network sitcom, that kind of acceleration doesn't just change your life, it distorts it.
And this is one of those names that people think they know.
Yeah. Most people have a headline version. Chico and the Man, young, famous, dead at 22.
Yikes.
And that's where the story usually stops. But that skips everything that actually explains how it happened. Because this isn't just a tragedy, it's a pressure story. What happens when talent, identity, money, and expectation all collide at once? So, Freddie Prinze, let's start from the very beginning. Freddie Prinze was born in 1954 in New York City. His mother was Puerto Rican. His father, unlike what he said on stage, was German. He used to say that his father was Hungarian so that he could make the joke that he was Hungarican. And he also so that he could make the joke that his mother was Puerto Rican, his dad was a gypsy, and they met each other picking each other's pocket. But yeah, that mix matters in 1970s America because identity isn't fluid, it's assigned. And if you don't fit neatly into a category, people would decide one for you. According to Freddie himself, he said he was such a mix of different ethnicities that when he went outside to play, the kids went, "Hey, look, there's an everything. Let's go beat him up."
In everything. Poor guy.
Well, he wasn't black, he wasn't white, he wasn't Italian, he wasn't, he was a bit of fucking everything. So that he was getting beat up. And he grew up in a rough area. He grew up in Washington Heights. Freddie used to say that he didn't have a walk up to his house. He had a run up to his house.
Oh, get away from everyone.
Yeah. So not
Poor
glamorous,
Freddie.
not Hollywood, real New York, real working class. Close quarters, a lot of personalities in a small amount of space. And that environment shapes him early. He's not just funny, he's observant. The kind of kid who watches how people talk, how they react, where the tension is in the room.
And that's the foundation of stand-up right there.
Exactly. Comedy at its core is a pattern of recognition. And Freddie has that instinct early. But here's what matters. There's no master plan here. He's not grinding toward a 5-year career goal. He's not networking strategically. He's a young guy trying to figure out where he fits. And like a lot of comedians, he lands in stand-up almost by accident. Now, New York in the early 1970s is a perfect place for that. Comedy is changing. You've got Richard Pryor, who we'll talk about in our last episode of this season, redefining honesty on stage. George Carlin breaking language apart and rebuilding it in front of audiences. Clubs are opening up everywhere. Small rooms, fast crowds. You either connect in minutes or you don't come back. Freddie steps into that environment in his late teens. 19, I believe. Actually, I think when he started stand-up, he might have been like 17, 18. 17, I think.
Okay.
So he's very, very, very young.
Very young, yeah.
He lied about his age to get into the clubs, obviously.
Which was easier back then.
And that's where this story shifts because most comedians take years to find their voice. Freddie doesn't. He connects quickly, but because he's polished, not because he's polished, I was going to say because he's polished, not because he's polished, because he's real. His material pulls from identity, from growing up between cultures, from not fully belonging in one lane or another. And that hits because audiences aren't just laughing, they're recognizing something.
And that's the hook.
Yeah. And once the industry sees a hook, it moves fast, too fast. Freddie becomes a regular at major clubs, including the Improv in New York. And the Improv in the 70s is not just a club, it's a pipeline. Agents are there, producers are there, television scouts are there. One good set doesn't just get you applause, it gets you meetings. And Freddie is having a lot of good sets. He's young, charismatic, different, and most importantly, marketable, which is where things start to get complicated. Because the version of Freddie that works on stage is not necessarily the version of Freddie the industry wants to sell. And that gap between who you are and who you're expected to be is where the pressure starts to build. Freddie doesn't follow a normal path. There's no slow grind, no decades of bombing in bad clubs, no long apprenticeships to figure everything out. He gets good. People notice, and then everything speeds up. That turning point comes with television, specifically The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Now, I am going to, we'll get into it. I was going to just stick to the script, but fuck it. We might as well explain the Carson thing. So when you're on Johnny Carson, I've already said it to you, so you know the story. But the story basically goes that Freddie was booked for Johnny Carson, was backstage preparing to go on. He was going to be like the last thing on. And one of the casting directors walked backstage, took one look at him, thought he looked too Puerto Rican, and said, Johnny will hate him, tell him he's bumped, and walked off. In the meantime, Johnny Carson had Sammy Davis Jr. on, who he regularly had on, and the conversation between them was dwindling, and there was still some time left on the clock to fill. So they were kind of, fucking just running out of conversation. They had nothing to really say to each other. So Johnny says, puts the call in, get the comedian ready, get him out.
Yeah.
And Freddie gets to do his set. He is so good that Johnny Carson invites him to sit in the couch afterwards.
Career made.
And that's it. That was a career maker. Apparently, that is every comedian that went on Carson, that's what they were looking for. And it was a rarity. It was something that never really happened for most people. You'd have to get a few times on there at least to get a word in with Carson. First time out and you're sitting on the couch with him. And as time went on, he got so close with the Carson show that when Johnny took nights off, Freddie stepped in and would host the show in his place.
Is that where he met Sammy Davis Jr. So to be, and because it's Sammy Davis was on Chico and the Man?
Well, Sammy Davis was on every fucking sitcom at the time. Yeah, I mean, you look.
He just stands out to me in Chico.
I'm pretty sure he was in Sanford and Sons at one point. He was definitely on All in the Family at one point. He was definitely on, what was the other one that was in my fucking head just 2 seconds ago? The Jeffersons.
He was.
So I mean, Sammy Davis Jr. did their own. But I mean, Sammy Davis is almost like a tragic story in his own right.
Yeah.
Because he was because he was the black man in the Rat Pack, he was the butt of a lot of jokes for them.
From the Rat Pack, even.
So he kind of went out and did extra to put himself out there a little bit more. But they point that out as well. They're like, you have to remember, you're talking about a kid who's like 19 years of age, late 19 years of age, close to his 20s. And he's only been doing this a few months. And now he is sitting down, and on one side of him is Johnny Carson, and at the other side of him is Sammy Davis Jr.
fucking Jr. Yeah.
And even when they showed that in the documentary about him, and they did a close-up of his face, you could see like his eyes shifting from one side to the other, and just kind of this
starstruck.
What
of course you'd be.
Is going on here? How
Pinch me.
You know. So you do well in Carson, and your career changes overnight. You bomb, you might not recover.
No pressure, so.
None at all. Just one performance that decides whether you exist in the industry or not. Freddie goes on, young, relatively unknown, and kills. Not in a polite way, but in a he's got potential way. He connects immediately. Carson notices, invites him over, and the rest, as they say, is history. This one is different. There is something special about it.
And from that moment on, it's not up to Freddie how fast this is going. Like,
yeah, exactly. Because once television locks onto you, the timeline changes. Writers, producers, agents, everyone wants a piece. And what they see in Freddie is something very specific. Not just a comedian, a character. Someone who can be packaged, defined, sold weekly into American living rooms. That becomes Chico and the Man. The show pairs Freddie with established actor Jack Albertson. Old guard meets young energy. Traditional TV meets something new. Freddie plays Chico, streetwise, quick, funny, a version of himself, but not entirely. And that's important because Chico isn't just a role. He becomes the version of Freddie that America recognizes.
Once that happens, you don't really get to step outside it.
No, especially not in the 1970s.
No.
But, I mean, let's talk quickly about that Chico and the Man experience. Because the thing about it is, Carson, again, was kind of partially to blame for that. Well, to blame for it in a good way. The dude who wrote Chico and the Man had the script written, had Albertson picked already as the Man.
Yeah.
And they were trying to figure out who they were going to cast as Chico. And he saw Freddie Prinze's set on Carson, and he was like,
I'll have
Chico.
some of that.
No, first day, things didn't go as smoothly as you might think. During rehearsals, Freddie was bombing. He just couldn't remember his lines. His pacing was off. His timing was off. You could see the inexperience, and which obviously because he was inexperienced. The man had never done this before. He had done stand-up, and even then he was fairly fresh at that. He was just a natural. And it got so bad that producers and the directors and everything were starting to get nervous because Chico and the Man was filmed in front of a live studio audience, which is why they were rehearsing. Yeah. And that was coming up. And they were starting to panic that, fuck, maybe we're after picking a dud here. So that night, they have the audience come in, and they're expecting this to be an absolute fucking shit show, an absolute disaster. And that it's probably going to be the death of Chico and the Man instantly. It's going to be a one and done kind of job. Yeah. Freddie Prinze comes out, the lights turn on, the audience are in front of him, and he fucking switches on. Everything changes. I can
understand that.
Yeah. Completely different from the rehearsals. Yeah. This man had complete control and everyone could see it. Even the directors were just like, we got it. We got our star here. Yeah. So this isn't modern fame where you can pivot, rebrand, and disappear for a while if things start getting a bit fucking heavy. If a character hits, you live inside it. The show premiered in 1974 and it works. Big ratings, strong audience responses. Freddie becomes a star almost instantly, not gradually, not on the rise. He is suddenly one of the most recognizable faces on television and he's 20 years old.
That's insane.
Yeah, they used a run-in from Sanford and Sons, which was already a hit, to propel Chico and the Man, to kind of give it the audience to start with. Yeah. Because, I mean, they don't do this here in Ireland, right? In Ireland, it's fairly standard. You have the ads, then the show starts. Then there's an ad break in the middle of the show. Then the rest of the show airs, credits roll, ad break, next show. The Americans, you like to do it a little more sneaky. And I don't like it because it makes me wait for like 30 seconds worth of a TV show and it pisses me off every time I'm doing it. But, the Americans will have ads. Like ads. They'll have like the show, ads, the last 2 minutes of the show.
More different show.
Then as soon as that show ends, the next show starts up instantly, and they'll run for 5 minutes, and then they'll put on ads. So it hooks you, forces you to stick around to see the last 2 minutes of your show, but then you're instantly running into the next show, which means you're staying put to watch to see what's next, and it hooks you.
But then the downside is it feels like it's constant ads.
Only for us, because we weren't brought up in it. I assume if you're brought up in that environment in America, you're used to it. Same way we
Yeah.
know that every 15 minutes we're getting
ad breaks.
You know?
Unless it's Christmas Day.
Huh?
Unless it's Christmas Day. There's no ads in Ireland on Christmas Day.
Really?
Absolutely.
I'll be honest with you, it's the one time of the year that I don't
mind
I
the
don't
ads.
actually see TV on Christmas Day a whole pile. I mean,
Sometimes we'd settle down depending on the movie, like Christmas night, like.
nah, our Christmas used to be wild. Our Christmas used to be like, you get up in the morning, do your whole Santa Claus thing. Then we would go from there to, back in the old days, it would be down to my nan's house. And then we'd spend the entire day at my nan's house. And then go up to my cousin's house where my other nan and granddad were. And we'd spend the evening there. And then we'd go home. And then if there was a movie on,
you'd throw that on. Yeah.
You know? And then as time went on and my grandparents started to pass away, it became more, we'd go straight from Santa in the morning up to my cousin's house to meet the family, then back to it for dinner, and then straight up to, and then the basketball goes on now. That's what they do these days.
I forgot that.
We put the basketball on and we start watching the NBA. But yeah. So how the fuck did we get to Christmas?
Ads.
Yeah, ads. So at 20, most people are still trying to figure out the basics of in their life. What life decisions you have to make at that point, you know. Where am I going to, what am I going to continue with this college course? Where am I going drinking this weekend?
How am I getting money
to go drinking this weekend?
Yeah.
Various stuff like that. Freddie is carrying a network show at this stage. So fame hits fast, money hits fast, expectations hit even faster. And here's where the industry part comes in. Because when something works that quickly, the machine doesn't slow down to protect it. It speeds up to maximize it. Long shooting schedules even, constant appearances, public expectations. You're not just doing a show, you're maintaining an image, and that image has to stay consistent.
Even if you are not.
Especially if you're not. So, because the more unstable things are behind the scenes, the more pressure there is to look fine in public. Especially back then. Things were way different back then when it came to that. Like, you know? I mean, even the stigma of drug taking back then was completely different to the way it is seen. No?
Mental health, everything.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, it's not like, I mean, that's the fucked up thing. We talk about these things over the next 4 weeks, right, on this show. And they're all comedians. Yeah. And they all follow very similar patterns. Except Pryor. Pryor is about the only one I will say is different from the other three that we're doing. The first three shows... There's a very common theme here of the industry fucking them over and overworking them and not taking care of them when obvious problems people were creeping in. But I mean, it's a common fucking issue. And then like, because mental health wasn't a big fucking news story back then, people didn't pay much attention to it. Because drug use was then stigmatized back then, even smoking a joint was seen as addict. You know? But at the same time, behind the scenes, it was heavily
everybody
encouraged.
Was doing it. You have your uppers and your downers. Your uppers to get you through the day, and your downers to let you sleep.
The biggest thing I've learned, the comedy world, from the 70s through to the late 90s, through to the 2000s, cocaine was not just a recreational drug. It was a
requirement.
Everybody did it. They needed to do it. It was the only way to keep up with things.
Yeah.
I wish I knew that when I started this podcast. I'd be racking up the lines before.
I told you this.
So Freddie is now in a position where everything in his life is accelerating at once. Career, money, fame. But emotionally and psychologically, there's no evidence he's been given the tools to handle any of that. And this is where the cracks start forming. Not publicly, not yet, but underneath. Because the gap between who Freddie is and who he's expected to be is getting wider. And that grip doesn't stay manageable forever. From the outside, everything looks perfect. Hit show, money, fame, the American dream at full speed. But inside the machine, things are already tightening. Because television success in the 1970s doesn't come with support systems. It comes with expectations, long shooting schedules, rewrites, network notes, public appearances, and you're expected to deliver every time like it's the first. Freddie is 20 years old. There is no version of that where you're equipped for this.
Especially not when it happens all at once.
Exactly. There's no adjustment period. No time to fall privately. Every mistake is public. Every weakness gets hidden. And then there's the money. This is where the story gets kind of uncomfortable. Because while Freddie is the face of a hit show, his financial situation doesn't match what people assume. Early contracts, young age, inexperience. He signs deals that heavily favor the network, which is not unusual, standard practice, but it creates a disconnect where you're famous enough to be recognized everywhere, but not powerful enough to control your own career.
So you look successful, but you don't feel in control.
Yeah. And see, that's the other thing as well. He kind of made a bit of a fuck up himself. And what happened was he had a manager.
Mm.
And from what I could tell, that manager was actually trying to fucking help him or protect him a little bit.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, you know, Freddie's like, why are you not booking me in these big casinos like Richard Pryor's in, or like he's in, and like he's in, and like he's in.
Because you gotta
and
work
I'm in
it
all
up
these
to it.
small little fucking shows. Yeah, but he's a fucking superstar.
That's true.
Do you know? He's like, why am I not in these places?
But then for
and
the people,
the manager is like, we'll get you there eventually, but we'll work our way up slow. And then at the same time, there was another guy who I actually believe was Richard Pryor's manager. I should have noted that. He was definitely one of the bigger comedians manager as well, or had been. And there is connections to Richard Pryor because they both dated Pam Grier at the same time, which caused the problem.
nice.
We'll get into that later. But he drops his manager, takes on a new manager.
Oh.
And the new manager gets him everything he wants. All the big fucking stages, all the big casinos, all the big work that he's looking for. Problem is, manager number one has gotten you this far. Manager number one has put in all the time, the effort, the investment to get you from zero to fucking hero in months, not years. He gets pissed off, sues him for breach of contract, wins. Now Freddie's got to pay this man millions. So Freddie isn't just working to collect money and to be famous. He's now working
to pay
constantly to pay off debts, to pay off this manager, to pay, and then he's not making as much money as you might fucking think.
Yeah.
Which was very common. I mean, this used to happen to bands constantly.
Oh, yeah.
The Bay City Rollers that got ripped off by their
Bay
fucking
City Rollers.
manager.
Did it happen to Will Smith?
Will
know why
Smith's
that's in my
doing
head.
fine. Fuck Will Smith.
No, way back.
I don't know. I really don't
I thought
know.
that's why he did Fresh Prince.
There was a tax thing you brought up to me, but I wasn't too sure about.
I thought you told me that ages ago.
I don't know. Anyway, control is everything when your life is moving this fast. Freddie starts to feel boxed in, typecast, defined by Chico. The same character that made him famous is now limiting what he can become. And this is where identity starts to fracture because the public sees one version, confident, funny, effortless, but privately there's pressure building. And like a lot of people in that environment, Freddie looks for a way to manage it. That includes substance use. Cocaine becomes part of the lifestyle, as we just said a few minutes ago. Not as a dramatic turning point, as a gradual introduction. Because in 1970s entertainment culture, it's normalized, it's social, it's everywhere. And like you said...
Almost expected.
Yep. You're young, you're surrounded by people who are using, and you're under pressure. And suddenly the thing that takes the edge off becomes part of the routine. And I mean, I can get it as well with the typecasting. I mean, can you imagine having... It's like that fucking episode of The Simpsons with, I didn't do it.
yeah, and he's like, I didn't do it.
Chico had the same problem. Well, Freddie had the same problem because people saw Chico. So all they wanted to hear was they just wanted Chico to come up and say, "Looking good."
Yeah.
Once he said that, it was like, "Hey, we got Chico." And that's.
There's no challenge. There's no growing in it.
He spent 99% of his time walking around telling people they were looking good, and that got the pop, and that got him over.
But I find it annoying seeing the same character, the same actor play the same role over and over. So imagine what it's like to be that actor playing the same thing over and over.
And back then it was like that. You got
this is your part. This is what you do good. So off with you.
Yeah, that was it. And especially when you were ethnic,
because the roles are limited.
If you had a race, but the thing about it was that's the thing. The funny thing about it is this character of Chico was going against the normal stereotype.
Yeah.
He wasn't a typical stereotypical Mexican where he was playing the lazy guy,
Speedy Gonzalez and co. Yeah.
Kind of thing. This was a quick-witted, intelligent, capable, fucking woman magnet, fucking.
Well, he was a nice character as well. He was gentle.
But that's it. There was character to him.
Exactly.
It wasn't just one-dimensional.
Yeah.
It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't Speedy Gonzalez. It wasn't fucking Slowpoke. It was, Chico was a person. There was layers.
There was character development. Yeah.
So, at the same time, Freddie's personal life becomes more complicated. He marries young, very young. Well, I mean, when you die at 22, you do everything fucking young.
Yeah, you do.
And there's a child who we all know as Freddie Prinze Jr., who looks nothing like Freddie Prinze Sr.
Not a thing like that.
Not even close. Responsibility increases at the exact moment his life is at its least stable. Relationships strain under pressure because fame doesn't just change your schedule, it changes how you relate to people. Trust becomes harder. Privacy disappears. And the people around you are often reacting to the version of you they see on television, not the one trying to hold things together behind the scenes.
So you end up isolated even when you're surrounded by people.
Yeah. And that isolation is dangerous.
Yeah.
And the thing people didn't know about Freddie either was Freddie did have mental health issues.
Yeah.
Freddie was most likely bipolar.
Yeah.
There's a good, very strong chance that he was bipolar. He definitely suffered from manic depression at times. So that's where the drugs are coming in. And we'll see how that only gets worse as we go along. So isolation is dangerous because when things start slipping, there's no one in a position to pull you back. The industry doesn't intervene because from their perspective, the show is working, the ratings are good, the audiences are happy, so whatever is happening behind the scenes isn't a problem yet. And that's the pattern. As long as you can perform, you're fine. At the moment you can't, that's when you're a liability. Freddie is still performing, so the pressure continues, and underneath it, things are getting worse. Not suddenly, but gradually, which was what makes it harder to see coming until it isn't. At a certain point, the pressure stops being internal and starts showing. Not all at once, not in one dramatic moment, in patterns, mood swings, irritability, unpredictable behavior that people around him begin to notice. Freddie becomes increasingly erratic. And one of the clearest shifts is paranoia. Not casual suspicion, something heavier. He becomes convinced people are talking about him, watching him, waiting for him to slip. And I suppose he probably fucking wasn't wrong in that sense. Back in those days, people were waiting for you to slip. And now, part of that comes from reality, like I just said. There is this pressure. You are being watched constantly, and your career is being judged constantly. How, one bad night could fucking ruin you,
Yeah.
But the response starts to move beyond that.
So it's grounded in something real, but it starts to spiral.
Yeah. The fear stops matching the situation. Freddie begins hiding cocaine in friends' houses. Not as a joke, not casually, deliberately. Because he's afraid of being caught, afraid of the consequences, afraid of everything collapsing if someone finds out. Instead of stepping away from it, he tries to stay one step ahead of it, which tells you where his head is at. He's not thinking clearly anymore.
That's survival thinking, not rational thinking.
Yeah, exactly. One of his friends, actually, one of his close friends who was the unfortunate one who, I'll say what he said to me at the last thing he said to him when we get to that point in the show. But he said, like, when he found out that Freddie was hiding drugs in his house, how he found out was Freddie rang him one night and he was like, go to, hey,
oh no,
there's the picture in your sitting room. Yeah, behind the picture in your sitting room. Yeah, put your hand back there. Yeah, see the cocaine? Bring it to me.
I'd be like, no, and, what do you want about?
Freddie sent them coordinates, which brought him up to the Hollywood Hills. And when he got to up to the Hollywood Hills, a very like empty area where there was no fucking people, no traffic, he said he could see from a wooded area a light, a flashlight turning on and off, on and off, on and off, on and off. And he finally was like, Freddie, is that you? And Freddie walks out and he's like, yeah, were you followed? He's like, who the fuck could be following me, man? But he's like, yeah.
Pure paranoia.
Like, this is how bad things were getting with Freddie Prinze at this point. So, alongside that, because if you think that story is crazy, I got a better one for you. There's growing insecurity about his career. Freddie starts fixating on another young actor's rise at the same time. One of the most notable is John Travolta. Travolta's breakout on Welcome Back, Mr. Kotter follows a very similar path. Young, charismatic, sudden television success. And importantly, he begins appearing in the same cultural spaces Freddie once occupied. Magazine covers, teen heartthrob status, public attention, it's all starting to shift.
So it feels like replacement.
Yeah. Not just competition, replacement. And it hits directly at Freddie's biggest fear. That he's already peaked at 20 fucking whatever he was at that point. 21 maybe at that point.
Yeah.
That Chico was his high point. That everything after this is decline. And that fear starts to take hold. Because if your identity is tied to rapid success, the idea of losing it as quickly becomes overwhelming. Then there's an incident that illustrates how far things began to drift. I have it scripted, but I can tell it to you straight off the top of my fucking head because this one is mental. So one night Freddie is off his tits on cocaine. Been drinking. And turns out old Johnny Travolta lives nearby.
Uh-oh.
Freddie heads down to John Travolta's house. John isn't home at the time, thankfully. But Freddie has brought a bow and arrow with him. And Freddie drives a number of arrows into John Travolta's front door.
And they just stick in the door, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Leaves them stuck in there and fucks off home. I'm not sure if when Travolta found out that Freddie had done it.
Okay.
But there was a police report. I have seen the police report. He did call the police when he came home and saw. Anyone would fuck.
No, yeah.
Especially as a celebrity in LA.
Absolutely would. I'd be like, shit, I got a stalker. Yeah.
A violent stalker.
I'd be moving.
Get on the police.
Yeah.
So there was a police report, but I don't think Freddie was ever actually done for anything in this situation. Yeah. So that incident definitely matters when talking about his mental health. Because it shows behavior is no longer grounded. This isn't industry rivalry. This isn't ego. This is someone acting on distorted perception.
Yeah, that's not pressure anymore. That's something breaking.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't have it in the script, so I'm going to bring it up now as well. We said earlier about Pam Grier dating Freddie Prinze. And it's funny because I had to watch...
Richard Pryor.
I had to watch multiple documentaries at the time, right?
Okay.
And in both cases, in both documentaries, it is mentioned how Freddie and Richard were both womanizers. Now, obviously, this happened before Freddie got married because Freddie was crazy about the woman he married.
Oh, yeah.
He was in love, like, you know, he was.
I know her.
But, yeah, you do.
Sorry, I knew the name. Yeah.
Fucking Pam Grier, man. Fucking
Foxy Brown. Yeah.
Jackie Brown, Foxy Brown, a bit of brown everywhere.
She's Foxy Brown. Oh, yeah.
But
Sorry.
Brown
It's
in
based.
Tarantino.
Yeah.
She is.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, she in Tarantino's as well?
She's Jackie Brown, man.
She is Jackie Brown.
Anyway.
Whew.
They were both kind of said to be womanizers in different kind of ways. Right?
Yeah.
It was basically because apparently Pryor was constantly asked by interviewers if he hated women. He was like, I fucking love women. That's my problem. I love them too much.
No,
I like all the women.
That's what Freddie said.
But no, that's what Richard said. But Richard was... when we get to Richard Pryor, we'll find out Richard didn't just like women. Like Richard liked everyone.
Oh, Richard did like everything.
Richard liked a bit of everything. He'd take anything off the menu. But basically, Freddie had been seeing Pam Grier and then went to a party at Richard Pryor's house, coked out of his tits again, found out that Pam was also dating Richard at the time, took a swing at Richard, missed completely, and went flat in his face on the floor and just passed out.
Do you know what's funny? I didn't know that story, but as soon as you said took a swing at Richard, that's why first thing that came into my head was this like comical slapstick swing and gone.
Yep. Actually, and again, not to cannibalize my last episode, but I don't think Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder were that very good of friends.
Stop! Do not ruin these movies for me.
Richard was difficult.
I love their
according to Gene, Richard was very difficult.
But according to a lot of people, Richard.
Let's wait until...
cool. What's that, episode 4?
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Anyway, so by the time behavior reaches that point, you're already deep into the decline. But the system around him still doesn't respond because he's still working, still delivering, still holding it together in public, and in that environment, that's all that matters. As long as you can perform, you're fine. The moment you can't, you become a problem. Freddie is still performing, so nothing stops. But underneath, things are getting worse. Not suddenly, gradually, until it reaches a point where it can't be contained anymore. So by early 1977, Freddie Prinze is no longer just under pressure. He is in visible distress. The combination of factors is stacking. Substance use, and it's not just cocaine anymore, it's Quaaludes, it's alcohol. So he's up, he's down, he's taking medication. I mean, the Quaaludes were being overprescribed to him. So he was getting bucket loads of them. But again, common problem at the time.
Absolutely.
Which is why you can't get Quaaludes anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like fun,
so he, like I said, substance use, emotional instability, career pressure. Emotional instability is built off of the substance abuse, definitely.
Yeah.
A growing dependence on prescribed medication. This is an important distinction because by this stage, like I said, it isn't just cocaine. Freddie is also being prescribed medication intended to manage his anxiety, mood, and sleep. But accounts from people close to him suggest over-medication becomes an issue. Not necessarily in a controlled, carefully monitored way, but in the loose, inconsistent way that was common at the time.
So he's not just dealing with one thing anymore?
No. He's dealing with multiple layers at once, and they're interacting. At the same time, his personal life is deteriorating. His marriage is breaking down. Freddie and his wife, Kathy, are in the middle of divorce proceedings. The reasons are not simple, but substance use, instability, and emotional volatility all play a big part of it. A lot of it had to do with, as well, the fact that Freddie Prinze Jr. was there, and Kathy didn't want her son around someone who was that emotionally
understandably
and taking a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
You know? Which leaves him in a position that is incredibly dangerous for someone already struggling. He's young, famous, surrounded by people, and absolutely, completely alone.
Yeah, that kind of isolation hits different when everything else is loud.
Yeah, because there's no quiet place to process anything. Only distraction, only pressure. In the weeks leading up to January 1977, Freddie's behavior became increasingly concerning. He makes repeated phone calls to friends, late at night, emotional, unstable, and in some of those calls, he talks about suicide. Not abstractly, not jokingly, directly. This is not a single moment, it's a pattern. People around him are aware something is wrong, but awareness doesn't turn into intervention. Because at that time, there isn't a clear structure with how to respond. And there's also a tendency to assume he will stabilize, that this is all temporary. He will come
Sure,
through
he's
it.
just young, kind of thing. Like he'll grow out of it. Yeah.
January 28, 1977. Freddie is in his, it says home here, but he was actually in a hotel. Los Angeles hotel where he was living while he was separated from his wife.
Yeah.
There was divorce proceedings, but they were very kind of, they were almost like warning shots from the wife. She wanted him back. She wanted to be with Freddie Prinze, but this was almost a scare tactic, kicking him out and starting divorce proceedings to make him kind of think clear.
Heartbreaking.
But unfortunately, it sent him the other direction. He, instead of thinking, I gotta clean up my act, he just fell deeper into his hole.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Early in the day, his assistant was with him. There was concern about his condition, but at some point the assistant leaves, with the understanding that Freddie's doctor would be present or involved. The doctor was there, he was supposed to stick around. Freddie wouldn't be alone. That assumption turns out to be wrong. Freddie is left by himself.
And that's the worst possible scenario at that point.
Yeah, because isolation is already a factor. No, it's immediate. That night, Freddie begins making calls again. Multiple calls to people close to him. His mother, his father, his wife. His tone this time is alarming. Distressed, emotional, unstable. He's not hiding how he feels anymore, and the people on the other end of those calls recognize the severity. His parents become actively concerned. They try to locate him. Now, the friend we talked about earlier with the cocaine story was one of Freddie's best friends. And he said because it had gotten to the point of the boy who cries wolf so much, that when Freddie said it to him that night, the last words he said to Freddie was, well, if you're going to do it, go into the bathroom and do it clean. So
Don't make a mess.
So you don't make a mess. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then he hung up the phone. And that was the last words he ever got to say to his best friend.
That's sad. So. But then again, he can't blame himself.
Not when it was constantly happening. I know that feeling. I've had friends who've done that to us before as well. Cry wolf a lot, where they've constantly said they're going to do something, and a lot of it is just attention seeking. But when you take into account the drugs he was taking, and
it was
how long
inevitable.
This was going on, people should have been a bit more fucking. And the fact that he had a gun and used to fucking protect, that was another thing like that's left out here. Freddie used to fucking scare his friends by playing Russian roulette by himself. Not like the whole 6 chambers, but he'd like say there's a bullet in here, spin the chamber, and then go click.
Would there actually be a bullet, or was it just a shock factor?
Well, one time, definitely, a friend of his or his assistant walked out of the room, and Freddie shot the ceiling.
Wow.
And when they came running in, he was like, "Gotcha! You thought I did it. You thought I fucked up."
That's a dark sense of humor, man.
That's this is where Freddie was at, man, you know? So his parents are actively fucking trying to find him, but they don't know what hotel he's staying in. His wife, Kathy, is also alarmed. She understands the situation is after getting more serious, and she knows that his manager is physically closer to the hotel than she is. So she rings the manager and she asks him to get there fast and that she'll be on her way and that the parents will be on their way.
Okay.
Manager gets there in time and he's talking to Freddie, and like I said, it's not a casual check-in. This is urgent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, everyone knows that something's about to go wrong.
Yeah. And they're trying to get to him in time. Freddie's manager gets to the hotel room. When he arrives, Freddie is there, still in a distressed state. There is a conversation, and during that time, Freddie produces a note, a suicide note. The contents are brief. They reflect emotional pain, confusion, and distress. They also state that my manager was in the room when this happened. He didn't know it was coming. He's not to blame for this.
Sounds like it might have been a murder.
Not a manifesto, not a detailed explanation, just a short expression of where he is mentally in that moment. And what happens next is fast. Freddie uses the firearm, shoots himself in the presence of his manager.
Jesus.
Yeah, the manager said that Freddie put the gun to his head, that you heard the click of the gun, but you didn't hear the bang.
Because it was so close.
And then next thing, he said the hand just dropped, Freddie's head tilted to the side, and blood just started pouring out the side of his head. So, yeah. Emergency services are called immediately. Freddie is transported to hospital. He's not declared dead at the scene. He's placed on life support and remains alive for a period following the shooting. This becomes another critical part of the story because it introduces medical, legal, and ethical questions about what happened even leading up to that moment. Freddie remains on life support for approximately 33 hours, and on January 29, 1977, he was pronounced dead. He was 22 years old. In the aftermath, the focus shifts quickly from what happened to why it happened. And one of the central issues raised is medication.
Yeah.
Freddie's family filed a lawsuit against the doctor. The claim centers around overprescription and a combination and quantity of medication contributing to his mental state, to his instability, and ultimately to his death. That becomes significant in a legal angle.
Yeah.
Because it moves part of the responsibility into the medical space, not just personal behavior, not just lifestyle, but treatment.
So now it's not just tragedy, it's accountability.
Kind of. And the legal process reflects that, but there's questions about dosages, about oversight. But truthfully, despite what I've written here, and I'm going to just skip past it because none of it's really right, the doctor did what everyone who is wrong and wants to get away with it does. He agreed to pay a settlement of $1 million, which was a lot of money in the 70s, to the family.
To the family.
But it was under the condition that he was signing a form stating he was claiming no
accountability
for what.
No medical negligence.
It wasn't his fault. I'm giving you $1 million quid, but it's not my fault.
I wouldn't take the money. I'd rather have him held accountable.
Well, I suppose they were looking at Freddie Prinze Jr. at that point.
Oh shit, yeah, I suppose.
His future. So after Freddie Prinze's death, the question isn't just what happened to him. It's what happens when everything built around him. Because Chico and the Man is still a hit show. It's still on the air, still generating ratings, still part of NBC's schedule. And now its lead star is gone at 22 years of age. And that's not something television in the 1970s is equipped to deal with.
No.
There's no blueprint, no precedent for a young lead actor dying in the middle of a successful run. He literally finished filming season 3 the day he killed himself, I believe. So the first response is avoidance. The show continues, but Chico is not immediately written as dead. Instead, the character is explained to have left, moving away, gone elsewhere.
So they try to keep the show alive without confronting what actually happened.
Yeah, I think they say that he went and he moved to Mexico to be with his dad.
At the start, yeah.
Because from a network perspective, you're trying to stabilize something that's suddenly unstable. You don't want to shock the audiences. You don't want to collapse the show overnight. So you create distance. But that only works temporarily because the audience knows Freddie Prinze is not just off screen, he's gone. And that reality starts to press against the show itself. Eventually, the series addresses it directly in a later episode. Jack Alberson, his character Ed Brown, the Man, finally acknowledges Chico's death. On screen, in character, and it's not played for comedy. There's no jokes, no reset. It's treated with weight, grief, loss, something that sitcoms at the time almost never did.
That's a massive tonal shift for that kind of show.
It is. Because sitcoms in that era are built on consistency. Problems get introduced and resolved within 30 minutes. Nothing lingers. But this doesn't resolve. This is real. And the audience feels it. The episode is widely remembered for how emotional it is. Because for the first time, a sitcom is forced to acknowledge something it usually avoids completely. Death that exists outside the script. And you can't write your way out of it.
How was it received at the time?
From what we know, it hit hard. Viewers were already aware of Freddie's death. The media had covered it extensively. So when the show finally addressed it, it's not new information, it's just confirmation.
Yeah.
And it gives the audience a space to process it. Not perfectly, not neatly, not honestly, but honestly, sorry.
Not honestly.
But honestly. Yeah, I'm a little
Shut off into space, he was.
This part of the story, his death I can almost handle, but when they start showing this shit on TV, it hits me harder as well.
I think it was a very emotional episode when they did it. I think that it was really nicely done, but it was very, very sad.
The new Chico over.
And he tells him about his...
Yeah. So, at the same time, the show itself struggles to continue because Chico isn't just a character, he's the energy of the show. The contrast, the spark. Without him, the dynamic changes completely. New characters are introduced, attempts are made to rebalance things, but the absence is obvious, and the audience feel it. Ratings decline, the tone shifts, and eventually the show was cancelled in 1978.
So even when they tried to keep going, it was never the same.
No. Because you can't replace a character on paper. Well, you can replace a character on paper. You can't replace the person that actually brought that character to life.
No.
And in this case, you're not just replacing a performer. You're trying to move past a real loss that the audience is still processing.
Yeah.
Which is something television wasn't designed to do. Freddie Prinze's story doesn't end with his death. It lingers in the industry, in comedy, in the way people talk about young success. Because his rise was so fast and his fall was so visible that it forced a question people still don't like answering. What responsibility does the system have when someone breaks inside it?
And the answer isn't comfortable.
No, because the system didn't create Freddie's problems, but it accelerated them, it amplified them, and when things started going wrong, it didn't slow down. It kept going. Because the show worked, the ratings were there, and the money was coming in. That's the most important part. And as long as that was true, nothing else took priority. Freddie Prinze becomes one of the earliest modern examples of something we now recognize instantly. Rapid fame, no support, no structure, and a person who is expected to hold all of that together while still performing at a high level.
And when they can't, it looks like a personal failure.
Exactly. It gets framed as weakness, as instability, as something individual instead of something environmental. Freddie Prinze was 22 years old, and that matters because there's a tendency to look back and treat him like a fully formed adult making calculated decisions. He wasn't. He was a young man in an adult's world with adult pressure and no margin for error. And that doesn't remove responsibility, but it adds context.
Yeah, which is the part people usually skip.
Yeah, because context complicates things. It means you can't reduce the story to a single cause. It's not just drugs. It's not just fame. It's not just mental health. It's all of it layered at the same time. Freddie's legacy sits in a strange place. On one hand, he's remembered for Chico and the Man, for being the first young Latino lead in a major American sitcom, for bringing something different to television. At the same time... Oh, hang on. I'm after skipping past what I was doing there. At the time when representation was limited and often stereotyped. On the other hand, his story is tied permanently to how it ended. And that tension never really goes away because people don't just remember what you did, they remembered how it stopped.
So what's the lesson here?
It's not a clean one. There's no simple takeaway that fixes this, but there are things that should have been learned. Fame without support is unstable. Pressure without boundaries is dangerous. And industries that profit from people at their peak need to take responsibility when those people start to break. Because ignoring it doesn't make it disappear. It just delays the outcome. Freddie Prinze didn't fail. He was failed by timing, by pressure, by a system that moved too fast and never stopped to check if he could keep up. And the worst part is that the pattern didn't end with him. It just got better at hiding itself.
Which is why stories like this still matter.
Yep. Because if all you remember is how it ended, you miss everything that led to it. And if you miss that, you don't learn anything. Freddie Prinze was funny, sharp, charismatic. He connected with people quickly. That's what made him a star. But those same traits in the wrong environment, without support, weren't enough to protect him. And that's the part that stays with you. Not just how fast he rose, but how quickly everything around him became too much to hold.
It's always a sad story.
Now, like I said, this and the next 2 episodes, there's a common theme running along it. When we get to Richard Pryor, a lot of Richard Pryor's youth had a lot to do with Richard Pryor's later issues. But when it comes to the first 3 episodes of this season, it's the pressure of fame, it's the system, and it's the system failing. Now, before we go today, I would like to introduce my little Freddie. You bought me this.
I did.
And
He's
I
the
named
cutest
him
little.
Freddie after Freddie Prinze. And the reason for it is because Freddie used to have the joke of, I did up the car, man. I put the fringes on the side, put the pom-pom on the aerial, and I got the little dog in the back with the head that goes up and down and up and down and up and down. So we are going to close our show today with little Freddie doing his little head bob in a tribute to Freddie Prinze Sr., one of the greatest comedians that didn't get to hit his real fucking peak. Because 22 is not your fucking peak.
You shouldn't have been worried about it.
You just getting started. Was you just kicking off. And if you want to hear more and hear just how fucking good this guy was, there's one special on Spotify, half an hour long, where he does a set, and you will be laughing. If you don't start laughing when he's talking about the junkie pigeons, I don't know what's going to make you laugh. So with that, we will see you next week with more tales from, well, Hollywoodland.
Yep.
Not so much the Horrorverse. Nearly the same thing, though. At this
Pretty
stage.
much. Just about to say it.
See you all in. Same lifetime. Same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye-bye.